Okay, so obviously England play Tonga in the men's third test at Headingley later, but England's women played Wales women as the precursor. Which finished 60 points to nil to England. The second half they just destroyed Wales, but it was only 20-0 at half time. And that scoreline flattered England because Wales had a lot of possession, a lot of territory, and they just couldn't quite get that final pass or that final kick to get over the line. And they, at one point, had a player advantage because of a yellow card for a high tackle. I think England could be quite happy with their defensive structure. They didn't concede any points whilst a player down. They didn't concede any points when they were having repeat sets on their line as well. Something that fell apart a little bit in the World Cup in the semi-final. England put in a very solid performance. They were a bit scrappy at points in the first half. The playing conditions weren't easy. We've had a lot of rain across the UK in the last couple of weeks. Headingley was a very slippery surface, very noticeable that it was wet. There was a bit of drizzle in the air. I think heavier rain is forecast during the men's test match against Tonga. But on the face of it, you can see the difference between a team that's well established, has those structures on and off the field, fitness, and of course England now have a few professional players who've signed some professional contracts with York Valkyrie in the Women's Super League. So there's that added benefit of better training, better fitness, better organisation, and better off-field structures and support structures. It does sort of show through, and of course you've got the on-field combinations. You've also got some players now playing over in the NRLW. Georgia Roche was the only one who was available for selection because other players who've gone over there have obviously got injured. And she's a very versatile player, can play at dummy half or in either of the halves positions, depending on how you want to tactically set up. Amy Hardcastle, who I think was the best player for England today, can play in the forward pack or in the centres. They played her in the centres today. Her destructive ball running was key down England's left. She gets 2 tries and she creates 2 tries as well. And so that was very, very noticeable of where at club level she's more of a forward, at international level she's more of a centre. So that's very interesting how certain players have been tactically used today. On the Welsh side of things, they did have a lot of possession. It was that final pass or that final kick or kicking too early and a few handling errors down England's end when they had a lot of possession, especially in the first half. The second half, they've fallen apart. They've run out of energy. You can see that lack of organisation and, of course, the development side of it with the combinations and not having a lot of game time together. In comparison to the England setup, that's obviously been, at multiple World Cups now. Wales have only been a test side for 4 years, and you can clearly see that in the difference between the two sides as the game wore on. But it was only 20-0 at half time. Hardcastle gets 2 tries. Shona Hoyle got a try, and Caitlin Beaver's got a try as well. Now, the Caitlin Beaver's try is set up from a brilliant solo break from Hardcastle, who could have scored herself. Honestly, could have scored herself, but it was a last-minute tackle by the Welsh fullback that brings her to ground, which means they have to reset and go for the next set of play. And Caitlin Beavers, was she short of the line? Should that try have been given? The TMO said there wasn't enough evidence to overrule the on-field referee, and we can debate whether certain aspects of the question from the referee to the TMO and how Rugby League could possibly, balance that out a little bit more, because I think she was short of the line, and that would have given a different half-time team talk for the Welsh. They wouldn't have conceded just before half-time. I think she was short of the line and was held up. But the referee on field has given a try, but wants confirmation from the TMO. And so we have to work out whether that area, that aspect of the game in regards to rules needs to be tweaked a little bit to give a bit more of a balanced opinion, because it wasn't clear and obvious that a try had been scored, but under the current interpretation, not enough to overturn the on-field decision. Now, the yellow card for Vicky Molyneux for the high tackle, should that have been red, we can debate that all day long. I think yellow card as a minimum. I don't think it was. I don't think she's gone in to tackle the opposition player with malicious intent to actually injure. Firstly, the opposition player was a lot shorter. There is a height difference, but not enough attempt was made to drop the tackle height. Otherwise, it was a technically perfect tackle if that was a taller player. But it was still an upright tackle. Now, Rugby League is different to Rugby Union in this aspect. Obviously, I've done a lot of Rugby Union content over the last couple of months with the Rugby Union World Cup, and tackle height and head contact has been a big talking point in Union, and that has been a very divisive talking point. Rugby League, there's more upright tackles. Obviously, you have 2 and 3 player tackles, hold the ball up, drive the player back. And so it's more of a different tackle technique, but she has got that one wrong. She shot out the line to make the tackle, so she's not given herself as much time to tackle lower. I think yellow is possibly fair, but it could have been a red. We've seen red cards given for that, and all straight send-offs in the NRL, for example, in the men's game and in Super League for similar tackles. We do want to see, dirty plays out of the game. I think this is more mistimed, not malicious. But after that, Wales do have a lot of the ball. England are making a lot of silly errors, trying to get out of their end. Whether they are under pressure, they are a player down, but handling errors were letting them down. Obviously, the wet conditions are having an impact, and they didn't look comfortable. They looked a bit wobbly at that point. I mean, they're not completely in control of the game. They've had very few entries at this point into the Welsh end of the field. Wales had a lot more tackles in the England 20, a lot more possession, and they're behind the scoreboard. And that comes down to building those combinations and timing camp together, and getting that last pass and last kick right, which will come in time with more test matches for this Welsh side. So it's 20-0 at half time. The Captain Beavers try, we can debate whether that should have been given or not. I think England, while not conceding a player down, that alters the team talk a little bit. And also scoring 4 tries rather than 3 tries alters that team talk a little bit. So they've gone in on top when they shouldn't have been. Second half, it's completely different. Wales have I think, that 10-minute period where they had that player advantage, couldn't take advantage of it. I think that's had an impact on them mentally and physically. They were getting overpowered. Fitness, that's another thing. And England have got more comfortable. They haven't conceded whilst a player down, and they start the scoring very early on with Tara Jane Stanley scores her first of 2 tries. Lacey Owen scores a try. Georgia Roche, who's had a great season in the NRLW with the Newcastle Knights, being a premiership winner over there. She's had a big impact on the game with some of her creativity. She scores her try. Tara Jane Stanley scores another try in 59 minutes. Tasmin Renouf on 63. Kira Bennett on 74. And Emily Rudge, the former captain, on 79 minutes. Tara Jane Stanley missed a couple of conversions. They were difficult kicks in wet conditions, so it's not the best playing conditions, let's just say. But Wales just ran out of steam in the second half, which is unfortunate because they played actually quite well in the first half. It's just that final pass. Now, obviously, we've had some news, obviously, in recent weeks of the York Valkyrie, Tara Jane Stanley being one of those players, getting full-time contracts, some players. And, of course, Georgia Roche has got a contract in the NRLW, so there's some of the better players that are going over to Australia. So the game is growing. I will say that. The crowd today was a good crowd. Obviously, more fans were filing in, obviously, for the England-Tonga men's test match that kicks off shortly. So all in all, I felt it was a decent performance by England. There were periods in the first half where they looked a bit unsettled, and I think that's that lack of game time since the World Cup with this team together, because they're normally playing against each other in the Super League, and of course Georgia Roche has been in Australia all year, so that lack of time as a squad together. On the Welsh side of things, that's 2 games in 2 weeks, which is a positive. They were competitive against France, again a slightly more established nation when it comes to the women's test game, and slightly higher quality. And hopefully with more game time, the Welsh performances will improve. But there we go. I think it was a solid performance. The second half, England were pretty good. There were periods in the first half, however, England were sloppy and made a lot of silly errors that allowed Wales to hang in there in the first half. But overall, a good solid win for England, and Wales obviously will continue to develop in the women's game. We've seen massive growth in the women's game. The men's game in the UK and France, we can have a different debate about the direction the men's professional game is taking, with the struggles on and off the field for certain clubs. And, with the Super League, Championship and League One structure, we can have that debate in a separate video. But I felt it was a decent test match for England. Decent, the second half was brilliant. Wales, obviously, they are developing, and of course, they've got to play test matches, and they are going to be on the end of some heavy scorelines, especially against the better nations. They gave France a good game last week, and that is part of the learning curve. Some people don't like these blowout scorelines where it's an imbalance, but you've got to start somewhere. They've only been a test side for 4 years, so in 4 years, they're now playing back-to-back test matches, not in a World Cup, back-to-back in back-to-back weeks. You couldn't have foreseen that 4 years ago when they started this international program. And the fact that they've now got enough depth to play 2 back-to-back test matches in 2 weeks and give players run-outs and debuts is a good thing. They will get there. They will get more competitive, and at some point, they may eventually beat England and France in Test matches in maybe 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years' time. We just don't know. On the England side of things, room for improvement. Uh, Second half, they relaxed into the game. First half, there were some nerves there and a bit of rustiness there when it comes to combinations and the team playing together. But from me, for now, thank you very much for watching. Place your thoughts in the comment section below. And now we have England-Tonga in the third test of the series, which England have already wrapped up. It'll be interesting to see how the weather impacts the game and how Tonga will respond to being 2-0 down in this dead rubber. Will they put in a performance? Will England want to go for the clean sweep? Will they have enough for the clean sweep? So we'll see what happens in England-Tonga in the men's. But for me, for now, thank you very much for watching, and I'll have some more content for you very, very soon.